Hey, my name is Sarah and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast. Alongside me, just like every single week, is manager Jacob. Let's just dive right in.
Let's do it, Sarah. What's going on?
What are you eating or drinking? That's what's going on.
Okay, this is a big one. You know what? I feel like there are vegetables that get a lot of love and then vegetables that get a lot of hate, and some vegetables that just kind of sit there and you forget about them. Squash is one of those in the middle ground.
You think it's one that sits there and you forget about it?
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like a lot of people just like, oh, let's bake some squash and put some butter and salt on it, and that's it. A little boring.
I guess I never think of like buying squash at the grocery store. I eat it in like a soup format or like
exactly.
at a restaurant
Squash
if it comes with something I like it, but I don't buy it myself.
Well, this is the thing. I went to a restaurant the other day and they had this squash side, and we're like, oh, it's the fall. Like, let's get this. It was amazing.
What was the restaurant?
Bernhardt's here in
classic.
Toronto. And it was like, it just inspired me to give some love to squash. I would say do that if you haven't.
Give some love to squash.
Yeah. What
Give
about you?
squash a chance.
If not squash, what are you eating or drinking this week, Sarah?
So also going into like the fall into winter vibes, I a couple years ago became an eggnog girly.
No, really?
Which is really off brand for me because I like don't like it's more so like I think I hated the idea of it for a long time.
Okay, I was gonna say
like I just like the idea of like eggs and milk, just like
that's kind of where I'm at right now.
But the taste of it is so good. And last night I went to the Well and they have the yurt there, which I'll talk about later. But they had this, it's Bar Chef that does all the cocktails in there, and it's really good like eggnog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Bar Chef. It's
amazing.
So good. And it's like eggnog mixture situation. It was so yummy. And I don't know, I'm an eggnog girl, but I get the one with almond milk. They have like an almond milk version, and it's.
Do you ever like spice up? Put some like.
No, I don't like cinnamon. I literally will just eat
Baileys or something.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
like with Baileys or something. But I would also just honestly look. Eggnog is so bad for you, but I would literally just like it's like sugar milk. I would just like drink it.
Maybe I'll give it. This will be I'll give it one more shot. I've never liked it, but I do like the festiveness
like
of
the
it.
idea of it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing out a little bit.
Yeah, FOMO for eggnog.
Yeah, Sarah, what are you watching or reading this week?
Okay, so I started Lord of the Rings and now I've ended Lord of the Rings.
This was your first watch of the original series ever.
Lord of the Rings ever.
What did you think?
I loved it. Why did no one tell me how hot Viggo is? It's actually insane. And it's not even the fact that man is just like, it's not even like actually how he looks. It's just like his aura. Mm-hmm. Like when he's riding the horse and his like hairs in his face a little bit. I also had nicknames for everyone. I was telling you the other day that like I could never remember anyone's names because there's so many people in Lord of the Rings that I had nicknames. So like Gollum, I kept calling Gremlin, even though it's close enough and pretty accurate. Viggo, what's his name? What's his character's name? Couldn't even tell you. Viggo is just Viggo because that's his name. And
what about
Orlando Bloom? I kept calling Zelda, even though Nolan kept correcting me, being like he would be Link or Lynx technically.
Right, yeah.
But I kept calling him Zelda because he kind of reminded me of that. And then the troll.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the with the axe.
He's just the guy from The Princess Diaries 2 because he plays the guy trying to take the crown in The Princess Diaries 2.
Okay.
So it's really funny seeing like all these, and then Liv Tyler. Like the elf, I just kept calling her Liv Tyler because I just could not see her.
You know what? I feel like we need to bring Liv Tyler back. I couldn't tell you the last thing she was in.
Do you want to know what though? It's because she's not a good actress. So they don't give her in the movies because I watched them back to back. Essentially, the last one was like 4.5 hours long. You can see they give her less and less speaking lines because she's not a good actress. So they just do a lot of like,
and that's
her just like elvish, like staring off into the distance.
Doing anything?
Yeah, I'm convinced she was hired for that role because she just kind of looks like an elf.
What if we put her on like that show Traders or something then?
Yeah, something like that. That'd be good. That'd be good. What about you? What are you watching or reading this week?
We talked about this on the podcast when it was like a big hit, I feel like a year and a half ago maybe.
I know, we've been yapping for way too long.
White Lotus.
I
finally gave it a shot.
You've never watched it at all?
Never watched it ever. I started season 1 the other day. Let me tell you, I got 4 or 5 episodes in.
It's easy to get hooked.
I didn't get hooked.
You didn't?
I finished 4 episodes. I'm bored. I'm like, am I going to continue? So does anything interesting happen after?
Well, yeah, but it's more like a show that you're supposed to like sit in. Like it's supposed to be like suspenseful.
People keep telling me that, but all I'm doing is sitting in there and getting mad at Sydney Sweeney for being so rude to her brother.
Yeah, that's happened to me.
I'm like, why are you pushing this guy out to the beach? All he wants to do is have
season 2 is better than season 1.
Okay. Maybe should I just start season 2 instead?
Yeah, because they live without each other. Like you can watch season 2 without ever watching season 1.
Okay.
So I started with season 2, then I went back and watched season 1.
Okay. Maybe I'll do that. Although there is, what's her name is in the second season as well,
Jennifer
right?
Coolidge.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Like you can watch them. It's just like she's on another vacation. Like it doesn't.
Has she even thrown the ashes in the sea yet? Because I'm like, Jennifer Coolidge, you gotta do something here.
I don't know.
Annoying.
What are you listening to this week?
Okay, I shouted this out on a live show that we did a couple of days ago, but I feel like it has to make it to a main episode.
Yeah,
here.
that's true.
Just because everyone on the pod listening to the podcast knows that we are big fans of Tate McRae, and we have to give some love to the Canadian queen that is Tate McRae, because she released one new song called Two Hands, which I think is bop. And then also she announced a new album that's coming, I think, early 2025. So I'm psyched for that.
Scotiabank Arena, you going to be there next year or what?
Well, I hope that we're interviewing her, and then I hope that
we just get invited?
Yeah, we just get invited to get some backstage.
So you don't have to like pay for tickets to a Tate McRae concert.
It's hard out there on Ticketmaster,
when you're like over 10 years older than her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What about you? What are you listening to?
Actually, speaking to our live show that we did the other day, just because, I mean, like, who knows? I think I'm going to do a best of the live shows as like a compilation. So who knows what makes it into the ether. I wanted to talk about my crazy Taylor Swift song competition that I did for myself the other day, because I talked about this on the live show.
Yeah.
So basically, I was really nervous ahead of my show about surprise songs, which is dumb because Taylor Swift is quite literally the only artist I listen to, and I've been listening for 15 years. So I do know all the songs, but I need to test myself. So I made Nolan play the first 5 seconds of 100 Taylor Swift songs in a row.
Honestly, I didn't know that she had. I know she had a ton of albums,
like over
but like
200
that's a
songs.
lot of songs.
So she has like over 200 songs. So 100 in a row. The first 5 seconds, I had to know the title. I didn't have to. I mean, I knew what album it was off, but I didn't have to know that. But I got half points if I needed another 5 seconds, which only happened 4 times that I had to ask for another
out of
5.
100,
and then I still got them right, and then I only got 4 wrong. And the one was annoying. The ones that I got wrong, he didn't give me the points, even though I could sing the way all the way through the song. Like I would be like, and I just couldn't. Like it was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't remember the title.
She has some complicated titles for.
Like Hoax was one that I didn't get, and it's ones like that where it's like she doesn't necessarily say the title in the thing.
It's not like if you run through the
and I don't listen to that song a lot, so like that was, or what was annoying was like You All Over Me, which is with Mare Morris. I'm like singing it and I'm like, it's the Mare Morris song. He goes, yeah, but I'm like, give me a half point. He's like, well, what's the title? And I will never forget the title of that song anymore.
Did you run into any tracks that you're just like, whoa, I forgot about this one?
Yeah. I mean, like a little bit. It was more so that the ones that like I needed the extra 5 seconds for usually were the vault tracks from like the new Taylor's version albums, because I don't listen to those all the time, so those ones threw me for a loop a little bit, but there was some I got in the first like half second.
That's impressive.
Which I was just like, this is a weird subset. It's like when men do sporkles about like championships of sports teams and who won what year.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if I could do that, but I could probably do like Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, okay, this is my version of sporkle. That's what I've been listening to.
Somewhere you went, Sarah. I feel like this ties into what we're talking about already.
I went to the Eras tour on Friday. Yeah, it was my sister's both times. Okay, so the way I went to Pittsburgh was because my one sister got me a code. Like she got the code and let me log on to Ticketmaster and get the tickets. And then the second time, Eras Tour Toronto, my other sister, they're twins, got a code. And that's how I ended up going to Eras Tour again.
Amazing.
Like they are so lucky. It's actually kind of annoying. But they've
works out for you though.
Works out for me. I went with them. They've never seen Taylor Swift in concert before. And then my friend Kate came from Montreal, which was really fun. And I feel like the first time I saw the Eras Tour, I was just very overwhelmed and overstimulated. I was in a football stadium. I was in a different city. There was like a lot happening. Whereas this tour, because it was like, I didn't have to think of any logistics, right? It's like my home city. I can just like walk down the street.
Yeah.
I know the Rogers Center. I know where the washrooms are. Like I didn't have to really think that much. So I really just like stood there and took it all in.
And what TTPD?
Yeah, I hadn't seen the Torture Poets department set yet, which oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. It actually is a shame that is not in the movie. Like that you watch.
I know.
Like
Do you think they're going to release another version?
I wouldn't be surprised if they added it because it's so good. But
I want them. I've seen a lot of people talk, and I would love to see this because I just watched the Disney Plus version. I want to see an extended version to see the full tour as it is now, but then also I want some behind the scenes
so
stuff.
It's rumored, like everyone keeps seeing cameras like interviewing people and stuff.
It'd be a missed opportunity.
Appears to be a documentary.
Also, the other thing you mentioned too is because the last time you went and saw her in Pittsburgh was like just after all the Maddie Healy stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Right?
So like it was really interesting because Pittsburgh was pretty early onto the tour in the grand scheme of like 149 shows that she's doing. It was like show 13 or 14. It was like really early on. So for me, it was really interesting because like she was so much looser this show. Like she was like more silly. I was comparing videos being like, oh my God, even just like the way that she's doing the choreography, you just tell it's like ingrained in her and the confidence. And also like it was really weird seeing I Can Do It With a Broken Heart live, knowing that she wrote that probably around the time that I saw her the last time. She had just like her Maddie Healy had just broken up. Like I'm talking like 2 weeks off of it, like crazy timeline. And so it's just really interesting to compare the two because now I can directly see like even though like at the time I looked at those videos being like she was so happy, whatever, it's like so evidently different that she is like thriving now. Which was great. Made me happy for, my close personal friend, Taylor Swift. What about you? Where's somewhere you went?
Okay, well, it was a little bit more low key, but just like this is a quick shout out. Haley and I went to a restaurant a couple days ago. Actually, no, it was different than when we got the squash. But we got seated. We didn't have a reservation. We just walked in. It was kind of a cold night. We sat at the bar. Shout out to bar seats.
I feel like it's a local move. Like it's like you look like the local that knows what's up if you sit at the bar.
Exactly. We actually went for a drink after that and sat at the bar again.
The best.
It wasn't a restaurant, but like the first spot, we were like watching all the food get prepared in front of us, even though we were just there to like grab a couple of drinks and dessert. We didn't actually eat anything. It was so fun and entertaining. But then also, there is something cool about the, speaking of aura, I feel like you get some aura points if you walk in and sit at the bar.
The confidence to just go and sit at the bar like is unmatched, I think.
Yeah. And then sometimes you don't want to distract anyone, but if there's like a little bit of downtime, you can chat with the staff a little bit and it's fun. So if you have the opportunity, check out the bar seats next time. Sarah, I think we had the same one for this, something we did this week.
Yeah, we did the live podcast at Toronto's version, which for people that don't know was like this massive tailgate is what they called it. It's essentially like a Taylor Swift festival convention that's happening beside the Eras Tour, and our friends at T-Swift Dance Party Canada who've been on the pod before were doing all the programming for it. And I was like, I think we were both really pleasantly surprised with the event. Obviously we knew a little bit like heading into it because they'd asked us to do the live show, but like I was shocked at how busy it was.
Yeah, I didn't know how big it was going to be. It's
like, grand.
Sometimes you just think it's going to be, there's this activation. We're going to do live podcasts. There's going to be like 4 people there. I was going
to be like the 4 people that we gave tickets to or the 4 people in the audience.
There were, I don't know. It was a massive convention hall. So it was tough to like put a number on the entire amount of people there, but it was a ton
but there was at least like 60 sitting and watching us, and then there'd be people like standing or whatever, which was really great. And like people could pop in and out. Like the one thing that we did though was like I was really trying to censor myself, and I realized in hindsight because I said to you, I tried to go like, wait, what'd you say? Because you would swore during the thing, and there was like,
did I really?
Yeah, you said pain in the ass or something, and then I said, sorry, what was that? Like giving you attitude, and you reset it. You reset it.
No,
you reset
there were
pain in the ass, and I was like,
there were like 4-year-olds there.
I was like, there's kids, and I just made, and then I was like, in hindsight, I was like, I made him say it twice.
Why did you make me repeat it?
It was way worse. It was way worse. But overall,
should we beep it if we release it?
Yeah, exactly. Overall, it was so fun, and we're doing another live show, and I think it's cool to do it back-to-back weekends to like improve upon it, see what we can do better. We did a live like album draft. I just like felt really good vibes at it. It felt really fun.
It was fun, and we'd only done one live show before that. I feel like we maybe bring them back a little bit.
Yeah, we should if people want them.
Yeah, let us know.
I feel like what we do here is kind of like having dinner with strangers, because we sit here and talk to strangers, and then by the end of the podcast, we leave with new friends. And I feel like that's the entire business model that our next guest, Jess Janz, has around dinner with strangers. So first of all, welcome to Talking Fast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for coming. So we were just talking a little bit like off camera before we started about when you started this and how it started. So why don't you intro yourself to our audience and tell them who you are and what you do to start off.
Awesome. Hello, cameras. This is my first in-person podcast.
Oh,
too.
really?
I've only done like Zoom podcast or like
we're honored to be your first
home. So I am wearing pants for, which I guess is good.
I will say it is like you could get away with not, because if you're watching the video version, we do have like a black thing across.
Yeah.
You could get away with it.
Had I known, maybe I would have worn my sweats, like not
we'll
put
give
hard
a warning
pants
next
on.
time.
Next time, whatever. I am Jess Janz, and I run Dinner with Strangers, which started all the way back in 2017. My friend Ryan and I started these dinners at his hair studio. He found that as a hairdresser, people would come in, and if he didn't like steer the conversation, then people would just sit in the chair and like bitch about work. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. We're explicit.
We're not at the tailgate.
No, exactly. We're at the tailgate where Jacob was swearing in front of children.
But you're good.
You watch it, but I'll see what I do.
You're good.
Yeah, so so he was like, ugh, if you're going to sit here for 4 hours and get highlights, like you better entertain me and tell me something interesting. And he just found that people would like talk about their office culture. And in my 20s, I was a musician, which meant that I was a bartender and server and stuff. So I always had like an existential crisis anytime anyone asked me what I did for work. And I'd be like, well, I work here, but I'm doing this. And no, I don't have an album. And it was a whole thing. So we started this dinner just kind of as like a funny social experiment of like, what happens if people don't say what they do for work. And we would make like crock pot dinners. Like there wasn't even a full kitchen at the studio, and we would cook, which is like really hilarious because we're not particularly skilled or talented or passionate about food. And people would just bring a bottle of wine, and it kind of went from there. But
Who got the first invitations?
we like, the great question. We would have like business meetings for like business meetings. We'd have lunch for 4 hours and like strategize and overthink it. And we're like, maybe this could be a podcast, and like maybe it could be a YouTube channel, or maybe we should pitch like all these other things. And then we were like, oh, who do we like strategize who we invite, that like friends that we want to introduce. And then it became this thing of like, first we were just like, I think we should just start and see what happens. But also inviting people to anything, like it's a miracle that anyone shows up to anything. I don't know if you felt that. Anytime I'm at a concert recently, or like in the last couple of years, I've been like, it's a miracle that 20,000 people have like coincided, because sometimes getting 8 people or even like 4 friends together for dinner on like a Wednesday is like insane. So it kind of became this thing of like, I would invite 4 people who didn't know each other, and he would invite 4 people who didn't know each other. And it was kind of whoever could fill the seats on that date.
And was that a concept that was an easy sell from the beginning, or was it tough to get people on board for this type of event?
It was, like it was funny. We started with like close friends, and obviously people that we knew would be down, like friends who are like extroverts. Not necessarily. Actually, I am a kind of a closeted, maybe not so closeted introvert. And so like having a little bit of structure as a, like my nightmare is a house party, because I'm like, I'm supposed to be charming and lighthearted and talk to strangers and make small talk. And like, you're not supposed to get deep and existential. So like house parties are really terrifying for me. So having something that's like, oh, we get past small talk and we're going to like share some stuff about our lives is actually, I think, more comfortable for introverts. So it's sort of like an introvert friendly party.
Love that.
What does some of the structure look like? Because I know that for myself, especially defining myself without using work talk or what I do as a career is sometimes difficult. I think that I love the idea, but I like would have, it's just a little uncomfortable to launch into and be like, okay, where do I even start?
Yeah.
So what does the structure look like?
Yeah. Well, it's funny to watch. Like the first 5 minutes, I think are like, admittedly, and sorry, and thank you to everyone who has come. Like, I'm sure that those first 5 minutes are like deeply uncomfortable, because people are like, I know no one. I signed up for this thing that sounds cool and interesting, but like, what the heck am I doing?
And I don't have my usual line of like scripted of what I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So people are like relieved, because they're intrigued that is taken away, because that is our go-to, especially in North America. But then they get there and they're like, oh crap, like what am I supposed to say? So people they're like, how did you hear about this? And where do you live in the city? And you can kind of hear the small talk happen. But well, when it was 10 people back in the day, we would just launch into questions right away. So we had like an icebreaker box of questions, and we would draw them, and everyone's part of the same conversation for the whole night. And then you sit down at the table. And so there's questions that each person answers. And by doing that, instead of just like talking to the person beside you and hoping that you have something in common or get on you're like, I think when we initially meet someone, we're basically going like, okay, what's the topic that we can riff on together? And so we're testing each other, being like, oh, you like sports? I don't like sports. Okay, not sports. Next topic. Oh, like, where do you go out? What do you like? Like, we're trying to find that common ground. And so by offering questions, it's a bit of a like, sort of training wheels, or offering sort of this like guidance to
I
be
like
like, talk
that,
about this
because
instead.
it's tough, because I feel like even if you're out to dinner with like 10 friends that you're close with, sometimes the conversation can get pretty dry.
Well, it's not
or
even just
feel
that.
repetitive.
I feel like sometimes if you're stuck in the middle of the table, like you're like, there's a conversation happening at one end and then there's a conversation happening at the other end, and it's really easy to get trapped in like the weird like, oh, who am I
sitting
talking
in the
to?
wrong spot? Yeah, totally. I think like the questions that you guys just started with are, we don't do that with people that we just met, but it's actually the best way to get to know people. Like when you meet a new person, we go like, so tell me about yourself. And it becomes like, hi, can you like define yourself to me? And it's kind of an awkward question where we're like, well, I like reading and I live in the West End and like, I don't know, I like cat videos on Instagram, I guess. Like we don't know what to share instead of saying like, what did you get up to this weekend? Like if we started with that question with strangers, we'd actually learn so much about them and be like, oh my God, I've heard of that restaurant. I loved it. Or I've been meaning to go there. And it actually by like, instead of being like, hi, can you define yourself to me? And if we just started actually smaller, we'd actually learn something faster from each other.
I love that. More like targeted questions about like something simple as like, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Like, which we ask everyone when they are testing the mic. But like you do, because then we get a lot of people go, oh, I don't eat breakfast. I'm like one guy a couple weeks ago was like, oh, I'm actually fasting. I'm like, oh, interesting. So then it like, it like helps like open the door to something about them that they might not otherwise think is a part of who they are if they're just having to be like, this is my bio that's on my website kind of energy. Yeah,
like people ask, like anytime anyone is like, okay, tell me your favorite movie of all time. It's like I immediately forget every title of every movie I've ever seen. And then I start to do this like identity crisis thing again where I'm like, okay, well, I've seen Father of the Bride a million times because I started watching that when I was like 3 at my aunt's house or something. But like does that make me seem artsy or interesting or intelligent? Sure. And so it's like the answer to those types of questions become like identity. I feel
like that's something that I fall into, and I feel like a lot of people fall into as well, is trying to answer a question in a way that's like giving the person asking it what I think they want to hear.
Totally.
Or how do I define myself to like
fit whatever like their aesthetic is or whatever,
and not just like within that one conversation, but like that can vary depending on like who you're with and what kind of friend groups. Is that a big part of the goal of this project in general, is to kind of have those masks come off? Or
yeah, for sure. I think there's like, I definitely have over time, I've kind of developed like sneaky ways of tricking people into like bragging about themselves without it seeming like those types of questions would be like, what are you best at? Or like, what is your like deepest passion, is like actually not a great, even though the root of that question is like, I deeply want to know that about you, but asking it outright isn't the way to actually find that out. And so, yeah, I think I have an obsession with like, oh, what ways can I frame questions that actually unlock either storytelling or get people talking about what they're learning about in life right now, or their background. And every question kind of has that structure of like unlocking, but like tricky. It's not like trickery. I mean, it is trickery, I guess, on my end, but like there's I have an ulterior motive of getting people to open up and like talk without feeling like they have to like present anything about themselves. It's just like, what is your take on this, and what do you think
probably
about this?
In the hope of having them not brag but connect right at the end of it.
100%. Yeah that people, I think like a huge thing, I mean, the thing that I've seen is that, I mean, and that the like that host or like creating a business out of this, I always say that I'm kind of like an accidental entrepreneur. Like I like started this dinner being like, oh, it's really cool to have deep conversation and like one-off sort of conversations with people, but people are coming being like, hey, we're lonely, or we're feel disconnected, or like we're having those like shallow conversations with our friends, like we want to connect on a deeper level with people, and we're coming to you, Jess, to do that. And I'm like, whoa, like it's sort of like the work is mirroring itself back to me. And it's made me see like, oh, people are looking to connect in a deeper way that I wasn't expecting.
Did you find, especially after the pandemic, that was like that obviously that was a gap? Because I feel like, I mean, there was a loneliness epidemic that's happened since the pandemic, so I feel like naturally people would be drawn to something like this for that purpose as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because when we started, there's sort of like there was like the hair studio version of Dinner with Strangers, which was pre-COVID, like that was 2017 to 2018. And then sort of this like post-official like business launch that happened in 2023. So even back in 2017 when we started, we were like, yeah, we're all on our phones. Like I'm trying to, like, this sounds so, I'm like aging myself, but I'm like, was Instagram even a thing? Like it was around, but it was so like, it's changed so much. Different. Online world, certainly like Zoom
Yeah, it
wasn't,
changed
like,
everything.
was so crazy with the pandemic, like launched in a different way. But even then, yeah, I just think that like social media personas and stuff would have been, which is so ironic because it's supposed to be this thing where we're like, it's social media and we're sharing stuff from our lives, and yet it's like we've never felt more, it almost makes us more lonely because people, even when I lived in San Francisco, I would like, it was a really interesting and difficult season of my life, even though I like moved there for a relationship and I'm like, California's so amazing, shouldn't this be so cool? And it was actually, I was so lonely when I was there, so I would post pictures online being like, at least I'm near the ocean, or like, here's a cool looking house on my way to work or something. And people would be like, you must be having the best time. It seems so awesome. And I'm like, just ask me how I am. Like, let me tell you how I'm actually doing. Not that I was trying to trick people, but I was like, this is just a picture of a house. You actually have no idea how I'm actually doing.
Has this experience then, has that transformed how you do share or what you do share on social media over the last several years to become more vulnerable and share less of the, maybe the highlights that most people do and more of, how you are feeling?
That's a great question. I think that's a constant, I'm like in constant negotiation with that concept, because I kind of have a dual life of like, I'm a poet, writer kind of primarily or first, and then there's sort of this business or dinner with strangers side that's more like forward facing. But in my writing, like writing is really vulnerable. I share really openly in that, but even that there's a filter on it because it's not free flow. Like, it's reflective when you write something. You're not just like, there are those people, I don't know, there's the delicate thing where it's like the overshare where someone's like, worst day ever, this crazy thing happened, and you're just sort of like, maybe call a friend, don't tell 1,000 people or 50,000 people online. Like maybe
is it tougher as you grow an audience that's maybe larger or no?
I don't know. I mean, I try and be as like, it's one of those funny things where it's like, it is me, but it's not me,
that's my entire life.
Yeah.
It's like a weird, you can be, because then it's like, if you say like, oh, like I'm not choosing to share everything or whatever, then some people might see that as like, you're inauthentic or you're not sharing everything. But it's like, not sharing in privacy is still like such a thing that's like so important to people.
Yeah.
And like not giving everything up, like just freely to whoever can see it on the internet.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, even if you are the most real, authentic like person on the internet, you are still like going through the stages. Like I'm a producer by like trade, that's my day job. You are still going through like the story, the edit, the whatever in your head. As a writer, it'd be the same thing. You're still going through like edits. And so it's still a filtered version going out no matter what you do. Even if you like try your hardest not to, it's inevitable. Because like, or if I was like sobbing and I picked up my phone to film it, I still had to consciously think so that's still like in inherently like you are still creating a character or a persona in general. So I feel like there's no getting around that.
I feel like it's maybe also tougher because the internet is infamously not a place that's good for empathy. And it's tough
crazy.
And it's tough to know how someone's going to respond to something or actually feel a genuine response no matter what you're sharing, if it's a highlight or if it's something that is, a little bit more vulnerable, which maybe then is why actually connecting with people face to face is so important.
Totally. Well, and I think that, I mean, it's hard because it's like I have family that lives like all over the world. And so, even like my cousins are younger. It's nice when my uncle posts photos of my like cousin when she's at her gymnastics like tournament or whatever. Like I love that I get to see that and otherwise wouldn't have seen that. And yet like, I think as you grow, I kind of think of it more as like, oh, what's the conversation I'm starting as opposed to like a day-to-day. Like a day-to-day looks really boring actually. Like I'm just like post gym in sweats and like sitting at my computer. Like when people do those like day in the life videos, I'm like this, I mean, it would be, I think maybe that would be a funny video to be like, you want to see like an unfiltered day in the life is just me sitting at my computer like, wow, so maybe that is better to post that kind of thing, but it's not necessarily the conversation that I want to start, but it's a good, I don't know. It's hard.
I think we just have to look at social media as like an asset to our relationships and not where we like depend and build our relationships out of, you know what I mean? So that's why I think something like this is really important. I'll never forget New Year's Eve. It was a pandemic New Year's, because that's why there was only a handful of people at my apartment, and we were having a New Year's party, like when you're like allowed 10 people, like whatever. Yeah. And we're kind of like, how do we make this fun? And I brought out, I just gotten We're Not Really Strangers, that game. And like, they're my university friends, and I was in a sports program, so they're all very like bro-y, sports bros, whatever. And they were all very like resentful, but at first they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do this. And then by the end of the night, we're like, they're loving it, wanting to ask another question, having these deep things. It's just like, you have to like, I feel like, push past the idea. I think what I love about this concept is that I would argue most people want to have deeper conversations. They just don't know how to.
Exactly.
So what would you say to somebody that's like signed up for one of your events? Like, what do they expect when they like sign up and then they're like coming to a dinner with strangers?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the format is just about to change, but for the last, like since September, so I've done 34 dinners in the last like year and a half.
Wow.
It's just like really crazy.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's been a lot. I've been like, in October, something snapped in October, and I was sort of like, wait a second. Why am I
Is
running
this
my life
sustainable?
Like this? Yeah, no, it turns out not. So since starting it in September, I've been running it with 23 guests. So it's been twice the size as the sort of hair studio days. Yeah. And throughout the year, I've been like, does this make sense? Like, do I like running it in this format? And it's completely changed. So the way that a group of 23 or 24, including me at the table, people come in, they get a question card that's like an icebreaker. And that's so similar to what you're saying about the New Year's party, is like, people are reluctant to use the card, but I'm like, no, this is there to help you because we're not talking about work. It's like, questions will be like, what's been the best part of your week so far? What's the most recent creative thing that you've done? Or like, what's a thing that you've learned through travel that like you have integrated into your life, or questions like that. And so there's a bit of a mix and mingle time. And then we sit down and do intros. That'll be like I usually ask a question like, what's your friendship superpower? Or what are you really excited about lately? Or one time I asked, if we were planning a heist, like what would your role be in the heist? Which is like really a fun, people got really creative with that. And I was like, wow, our bases are really covered. Like there's like the type A people. And I'm like, I'm with her. Like I trust you with my life. Absolutely. And then we sit down at the table and we kind of go in and out of like, I'll ask a question, the whole table answers, and then we like chat with the people beside you. And then we come back again and do a couple questions together. And there's always a theme to each conversation. So there's been like a dinner about gratitude and relationships and change, like what's a change you've made lately, or like sharing our stories. Like in January, we talked about making resolutions or goal setting, like kind of more conceptually, like how do we feel about setting goals? Do we care about making resolutions? That sort of thing. And so that's what up until now people can expect. I guess like the overarching thing is that there's good questions. You're going to meet lots of people. The point of having everyone answer is that you get 10 to 20 perspectives from each person, as opposed to just talking to the person beside you. And that way, like, because I think when we go to a house party, you end up just talking to a couple of people or in networking standing in the corner. Yeah. And so you get to hear like, oh my gosh, like at our very first dinner, there was like Karen, the investment banker who makes like a ton of money, I'm sure. And like my friend John, who runs a bike shop, and like when else are they ever going to have dinner in their lives?
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool to see just like people from completely different walks of life coming. But starting in January, I'm going back to only doing 12 guests. Like I was like, this has been fun. This has been cool to try like a different format, and really realizing like it's working, and it's been really cool to see it in a different, like I've like learned so much. It's been the sandbox of like trying out different formats, but I'm like, something magical happens. Like it's just a different thing when there's smaller dinners. And when I've hosted a couple in Brooklyn this year, and then a couple in Vancouver, and those have been 10-person dinners. And I'm like, yeah, this feels right to me. Like where you actually get to like,
that's so interesting, because that was going to be one of the questions I had for you, is like, how do you scale connection, like from a business perspective? So it's so interesting to just know that you're like, let's actually cut it back.
Yeah. Talk about business. Like, I feel like I'm like an upside down business model. I mean, I'm like, is this a business? What is the business?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But yeah, I think I keep talking about it of like, Dinner with Strangers itself, like the event is an orange and my career is an orchard, and like people keep looking at it being like, we have to like make orange juice out of this thing, and I'm like, it's not even about the orange. Like it is about the orange, but it's like that's not the like this is like a sidebar, I guess, of like the business strategic side of all of this move or whatever. But that has been the question that I'm like, what is this thing and what does scalability look like? Because it doesn't get better with a stadium full of people. And I don't want tickets to be $450 to come have this like immersive, elitist like dinner experience. And yet food cost is super high and stuff. So those things are like definitely on my mind. But I know that like the dinner itself is proof of concept for all the other work.
Well, I guess like speaking of using the metaphor of you as this orchard then as well, because I know that you also host events. I think the last one was on Zoom of like a poetry event as well. Does all of these oranges in the orchard kind of just add to your, I guess, like career skills as a facilitator for all sorts of ways for people to connect? And is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. So actually just today my website launched for my new business, which is called With Strangers as opposed. So Dinner with Strangers is a branch of that. We're in tree metaphors now. We're just like stick with it. But Dinner with Strangers is a part of that. But With Strangers, we'll have lots of different events that I have one coming up with Araste from her Healthful. We're doing an in the city like half day retreat that's like yoga and meditation and a conversation around mental health and slowing down and what that allows us to do. And I guess the through thread is that even for if it's a yoga class meetup, the irony is that like yoga is yoga with strangers, any class that you go to, but that there's an element of like, no, let's like say hi to the people beside us and like get to know each other like before and after the class. So it might be a 90-minute experience, but the class is 60 minutes, but there's an integration of like, these are your neighbors. Let's talk to each other.
That's a good point. We've talked a lot on this podcast even about like how hungry people are for third spaces. And there are workout classes and intramural sports. And
in our voicemail, we get asked like every single month, like, how do you make friends as an adult? And it's like, you just have to put yourself in those types of scenarios. But you're right. Like if someone's like, there's not like
activities are sometimes just like in the door, out the door.
So even if it's just like, it could be the exact same yoga class that somebody else goes to. I love that it's like, oh, if it's with strangers, like with your brand, then it's like people know that it's not weird if you start talking. It's probably wouldn't be weird if you start talking to the person next to you anyways, but just like socially, what's like seen as a social norm, social acceptable.
Well, and sometimes you're out like, I mean, I go and I work at coffee shops often, and if someone came up, we sort of have these like social orbs that are around us that I'm like, this is my tiny cafe table. I'm here to like hammer out 40 emails, like no one talked to me. So if someone did come up and they're like, hey, like, what's your perception about like what we're doing here on Earth? I'd be like, I mean, I'd probably take the bait because I'd be like, what is this?
You're like so fascinated.
But there's so often we're like, we meet up in our little orbs or we're out for dinner with friends. And like, if someone comes up, we're like not open to like make new friends. And that was a thing in San Francisco too. Like I like failed at making friends when I lived there basically. And until I started going like, oh, if I tell the yoga instructor or like whatever class that I'm at, because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to talk to 3 new people today. And I'd be like, I like your bracelet. And someone would be like, thanks. And they'd like continue on. And I'm like, it took everything, every ounce of like vulnerability and extroversion to just like say hi to them. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I failed or whatever. And so I had to like, you have to like actually kind of say what you're looking for, even in like, and that's the kind of ties into dating in a way, but it even has to do with like platonic friends of like, I would go up to the yoga instructor and be like, hi, I moved here from Canada and I'm super lonely. And like, can you, because they know the people that are in the class, whatever. So it's giving sort of that facilitator host, like bridge the gap of like telling people that this is an event where it is completely okay to say like, everyone is a stranger here and everyone is here because they're interested in connection. So like say hi to the person beside you and like see what happens when you introduce yourself to each other.
And like encouraging people to just start doing it more often in their everyday life. It happened. We do run clubs, and so we see it like a little bit there. It's like you have to get over like the running and then trying to like chit chat and then slowly. But like eventually, like the amount of like girls at those run clubs that would tell me that they like tried out like Bumble BFF or any of those things and like didn't really land for them. So I think like especially for our audience, like this is gonna be so wonderful for them to even just like learn about With Strangers as a brand, and I think it's like a really cool opportunity. Do you have anything coming up in Toronto that people should know about?
Yeah, I have the event on December 1st at Well Beyond. So that's the yoga conversation about, it's called Slow and Seed. So there's like ear seeding workshop that's happening too, which is like a calming like vagus nerve thing that they're leading. It's very fun, kind of spooky, and then not spooky at all. It's great, and like yoga, meditation, and then Aresta and I are having a conversation about wellness and mental health. And then I have end of year gathering on December 6th for anyone who wants to come. It's Taste of Dinner with Strangers, so tickets will be up for that soon. And then I feel like all year people have been asking about like throwing a singles dinner, and I've been like really hesitant to do so because I've just been like, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to like connect people? But I feel like I've like cracked the code by taking off the format of dinner, and I'm partnering with the W Hotel for that just before Valentine's Day.
Oh, amazing.
And we're doing, it's like gonna kind of be like speed dating, but in groups kind of. So it'd be like get in groups of 6, like 3 guys, 3 girls, and have questions like Dinner with Strangers. So it's like using that format, but having a bigger room and kind of flipping. Because it's funny I'm like, again, if we have these sort of like, oh, buy a ticket and come to this bar, but there's no sort of structure for anyone. It's like, hey, everyone's single, and then it's like
no
hit on each other. It's kind of like this
and
weird
but there's
thing.
events like that.
I've been in a bar where it
100%.
changed over to like a singles dating event that had no structure, and I was like, I finished my dinner immediately, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. The vibes are off.
Well, it's just like there's so much energy of everyone that like wants it so badly, but they don't know. No one knows how to serve domino.
Yeah.
Just,
That's smart.
I love
That's a
that.
good
I think
idea.
that's good. I'll be so curious to like hear how that goes. With like
I'm thinking of having, because the other thing has been, it's like having guy friends and girlfriends buy tickets together and like being like, we're vouching for the dudes. That's kind of been,
I
in
love
all
that.
honesty, something where I'm like, how do we get
I love that.
through this? So at the beginning, like have a pair like that come up and be like, introduce your, like, sell your friend to us. Like, what's great about dating your friend? Like, let's hear about it or whatever.
Well, it's true, because
and
we
like,
always want to like, I don't know, I always want to find like mutuals for like girlfriends or my guy friends like to date or whatever. And that's like the best way. It's like whenever I throw a party, it's like that's what I'm in my brain trying to do when I bring my Yeah, exactly. Without it being so in their face.
Are you my mother? Because she does that.
Where can people find you guys?
So my new website is withstrangers.co, and my socials are Jess Janz or With Strangers Co. And I'm on the internet. I'm around.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
This was so wonderful to learn more about this. I think you're going to get an influx of messages from our listeners, just because I feel like this is a really unique thing that's not happening anywhere else, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is so fun to chat with you guys. Thanks for having me.
And thank to you guys for listening to another episode of Talking Fast. We're here every single Wednesday. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you next week. Bye.